Princess Lyra of Zytheria stood on the balcony of her palace, looking out over the vast city below. The sun of her home planet bathed the sky in a mix of purple and gold, casting long shadows across the spires of the royal capital. Everything about her world was perfect, at least on the surface. Her people were advanced, their technology far beyond what most civilizations could imagine, and their society had flourished for thousands of years. Yet, despite all this beauty and prosperity, Lyra felt a growing unease in her heart. For months, she had been preparing for the most important moment of her life, her arranged marriage. As the heir to the throne, it was her duty to unite Zytheria with another great civilization through marriage. The alliance would strengthen her planet and ensure its place in the Interstellar Council. But the news she had received yesterday still felt unreal. Her future husband was a human, not a Zytherian noble, not even an alien from a similar world. A human, from a planet called Earth, known for being young and, by Zytherian standards, primitive. Lyra's advisors had assured her that this was a wise choice. Humans, they said, were courageous, creative, and surprisingly adaptable. But that did little to calm her nerves. Humans were so different. Could a human truly fit into the life of a princess? Could he even survive in a world of advanced technology and strict customs? The palace doors behind her opened with a soft chime. Lyra turned to see Elion, her closest aide and friend, entering the balcony garden. His tall, slender frame and flowing silver robes marked him as one of the highest-ranking advisors in Zytheria. "Princess," Elion said, bowing slightly, "the human has arrived. He requests an audience with you before the formal introduction ceremony." Lyra's heart skipped a beat. "Already? I was not prepared to meet him today." Elion's expression was calm but knowing. "He is curious, Princess. I believe he wishes to understand Zytheria before the ceremony. He is eager to learn." Lyra took a deep breath. "Very well, let him come." Moments later, the doors opened again, and a human stepped into the palace hall. Lyra's eyes widened. He was tall, with broad shoulders and a confident stance. His dark hair was neatly trimmed, and his piercing blue eyes held a mixture of curiosity and determination. He carried himself with a calm strength that immediately caught Lyra's attention. "Princess Lyra," he said, bowing slightly in respect. "I am Eric, from Earth. It is an honor to meet you." Lyra blinked. "Eric, I expected someone different. Someone more like us." Eric smiled faintly. "I understand. I am not like you, Princess. But I hope to learn your ways and serve your people as my own." There was a strange sincerity in his voice that made Lyra pause. She had met countless nobles, warriors, and diplomats from various worlds, but few had such a simple honesty. Still, the thought of being married to a human, someone so different from her people, filled her with shock and doubt. Elion stepped forward, sensing the tension. "Princess, perhaps it would be wise to show him our customs. Let him learn how Zytherians live, and you may find common ground." Lyra nodded reluctantly. "Very well. Show him the palace." Eric followed her through the grand halls, his gaze scanning the towering walls adorned with holographic art and glowing panels. He was clearly fascinated by the technology, but he did not appear overwhelmed. Instead, he asked questions simple, thoughtful questions about how the systems worked, why certain traditions existed, and what it meant to be a member of the royal family. Lyra was surprised. Most aliens found humans slow and clumsy, unable to grasp advanced concepts. But Eric asked questions that were not only intelligent, but insightful. He seemed to think in ways Zytherians did not, connecting ideas with creativity and imagination. As they walked through the palace gardens, Lyra began to relax slightly. She watched him observe the glowing flora, the floating water streams, and the exotic creatures that roamed freely. "Do humans have gardens like this on your planet?" she asked. Eric shook his head. "Not like this." Earth has plants, of course, but nothing so alive. Everything seems connected here. It's beautiful. Lyra felt a strange warmth in her chest. Perhaps this human was not entirely incapable of understanding her world. Perhaps he could belong here. Their tour was interrupted by a sudden alarm. Red lights flashed across the halls, and a holographic display showed a small group of intruders attempting to breach the palace perimeter. Lyra tensed. Elion, what is happening? Elion's calm demeanor did not waver. A minor security breach, Princess. Our defenses are responding. But, Eric, if you wish to assist, now would be a good moment. Eric nodded. Without hesitation, he activated a small device on his wrist, and a holographic map of the palace appeared before him. Where are they trying to enter? He asked. Elion pointed to the main gates. They are trying to disable the entrance shields. You are familiar with human combat strategies, yes? Eric's jaw tightened. Yes. I've trained for situations like this. Let me help. Lyra watched in astonishment as Eric moved swiftly, coordinating with the palace security drones and using the holographic map to predict the intruders' movements. Within minutes, the breach was contained, the intruders were apprehended, and the palace remained secure. Lyra felt her heart racing not from fear, but from amazement. This human, whom she had doubted only moments ago, had saved her home with his courage and quick thinking. Impressive, she said quietly, her eyes meeting his. You handled that well. Eric smiled, though it was modest. I only did what I could. Your people have wonderful technology, but sometimes strategy and instinct make the difference. Lyra nodded slowly. For the first time, she began to see that humans, though young and seemingly fragile, had something special. Something her advanced civilization sometimes lacked. Courage, adaptability, a willingness to act even when the odds seemed impossible. The rest of the day passed in a blur of introductions and lessons. Eric observed Zetherian culture, listened to royal advisors, and even attempted to learn some of the ceremonial dances. Lyra found herself laughing at his awkward but determined efforts. Despite the initial shock, she was beginning to feel something she had not expected: respect, and perhaps the beginnings of curiosity about this human who would soon become her husband. As night fell, the palace lights illuminated the sky in a cascade of colors. Lyra and Eric stood once again on the balcony, looking out over the city. The events of the day weighed heavily on her mind. You are different from anyone I have ever met, she said softly. Eric turned to her, his expression calm but sincere. I am different, Princess, but I hope, in time, I can be someone you can trust, someone you can rely on. Lyra felt a shiver run through her. She did not know if she could trust him yet. But she knew one thing for certain: this human warrior, though unexpected, was unlike anyone she had ever known, and perhaps, just perhaps, he could change not only her life but the future of Zytheria itself. As they watched the twin moons rise above the horizon, Lyra realized that this alliance, though shocking, might hold the key to something greater. Something neither human nor Zetherian could have imagined alone. The princess, once doubtful and wary, now felt a spark of hope, and for the first time in her life, she wondered if her future husband, this human warrior, might be exactly what her world needed. The morning sun rose over Zytheria in soft shades of violet and gold. The city below hummed with life, as flying vehicles glided between towers and citizens prepared for the day ahead. Princess Lyra walked through the palace gardens, her long robe brushing against the luminous plants. Beside her, Eric followed, trying to adjust to the delicate balance of gravity on Zytheria. Be careful with the plants, Lyra said, glancing at his boots. Some of them are fragile. A misstep could damage them permanently. Eric smiled sheepishly. I'll try to be careful. Your gardens are amazing. So alive. It feels different from Earth. Lyra looked at him, noting how genuinely curious he seemed. Different. Yes. But fragile too. Everything here has a purpose. Even the smallest creature. That is how we survive, and grow as a civilization. Eric nodded thoughtfully. On Earth, we take things for granted. I can see why Zetherians are so careful. Everything is connected. Lyra paused. You are learning quickly. That is unusual for humans, Eric shrugged. I learn when I need to. And today, I think I need to learn a lot. They walked through the palace corridors to the council hall, where Lyra was expected to attend meetings with her advisors. Today, however, she insisted that Eric join her. It was time for him to understand not only the palace but the responsibilities of a Zetherian royal. The hall was a vast chamber filled with holographic displays and floating screens. Around the table sat high-ranking officials, their eyes curious as Eric entered. Murmurs filled the room. Humans were rare in such places, and most aliens did not believe a human could handle complex strategy or diplomacy. Lyra introduced him. Everyone, this is Eric, my husband and the human warrior. He will join us today to observe and learn. The room fell silent. Some of the advisors exchanged skeptical looks. One elder, tall and serious, leaned forward. A human, princess? Can he understand our ways? Our strategies? Eric met the elder's gaze calmly. I may not be Zetherian, but I can learn quickly, and I am willing to serve your people in any way I can. Lyra noticed that his confidence was quiet, not boastful. There was a calm determination in his voice that seemed to demand respect. The council began discussing a trade agreement with a neighboring planet. Alien languages and complex negotiations filled the room. Eric listened closely, asking questions when necessary, trying to understand not only the words but the intentions behind them. At one point, a problem arose. The neighboring planet proposed a deal that seemed fair on the surface, but contained hidden clauses that could disadvantage Zetheria. Several advisors debated on technical points, but Eric, thinking simply yet clearly, pointed out a flaw they had overlooked. Lyra's eyes widened. Explain, please. Eric walked to a holographic display and highlighted the issue. This clause could give them control over the supply of vital energy crystals. If accepted, Zetheria would depend on them for resources. A simpler approach is to negotiate only what benefits both sides equally. The room fell silent again. The advisors exchanged surprised glances, clearly impressed by this human who could see problems others missed. Even the elder who doubted him nodded slowly. Lyra smiled faintly. See? Humans may not understand everything at first, but their perspective is different, valuable. After the council meeting, Lyra decided it was time to teach Eric Zetherian combat techniques. Though he was already a skilled warrior, the fighting style of Zetheria was unlike anything he had trained for. It relied on a mix of martial discipline and advanced energy manipulation. The training hall was enormous, with walls that shimmered as energy shields protected the space. Lyra demonstrated a few movements, graceful and precise, flowing like water yet striking with power. Eric attempted to mimic her moves. At first, he stumbled, colliding with energy barriers and nearly tripping over floating training droids. Lyra sighed but suppressed a laugh. You are clumsy, human. Zetherian combat is about balance and flow, not just strength. Eric wiped sweat from his brow. I'll get it. Humans adapt. We just need time. Hours passed as Lyra corrected his posture and guided his strikes. Slowly, Eric improved. He combined his raw strength with the finesse of Zetherian techniques, creating a style that was unusual but effective. You are improving faster than I expected, Lyra admitted. She could see that his determination was not just physical but mental. Perhaps there is more to humans than we give them credit for, Eric smiled. Perhaps. But I still have much to learn. And I hope you will teach me, Princess. Lyra felt a strange warmth. Teaching him, guiding him, even laughing at his mistakes, it was beginning to feel natural. She realized that his presence was no longer shocking. It was intriguing. Later that day, a message arrived from the Outer Rim Council, warning of a potential threat. A rogue faction from a distant star system had begun raiding supply ships, and there were rumors they intended to strike Zytheria next. Lyra's advisors panicked, debating defenses and strategies. The palace security was advanced, but the rogue faction's tactics were unpredictable. Eric, observing the discussion, leaned forward. "I've faced ambushes like this before," he said calmly. "They rely on speed and surprise. We should predict their movements, set traps, and use our technology in ways they won't expect." Lyra looked at him, amazed. "You truly think like a warrior, human." Eric nodded. "Strategy is universal. Plan carefully, act boldly, and always think 2 steps ahead. That is how I survive on Earth." "It might help here too," the advisors murmured, skeptical at first, but Lyra intervened. "Let him help. His perspective may save our people." Preparation for the defense began immediately. Eric worked alongside the Zytherian engineers and commanders, combining his knowledge of human tactics with their advanced technology. He suggested decoys, ambush points, and defensive formations that Zytherians had never considered. As the day passed, Lyra observed him quietly. She noticed something remarkable. While Zytherians relied heavily on technology and calculation, Eric relied on instinct, courage, and creativity, and together, the combination seemed powerful. By nightfall, the first signs of the rogue faction appeared near the city's outer gates. The sky was filled with flashes of light as scout ships approached, and alarms echoed throughout the palace. Lyra's heart raced. She had trained for this her entire life, but now she was seeing it in a new light. Her human husband, once a source of shock, was now a guiding force. Eric moved confidently among the command centers, directing drones, alerting security forces, and coordinating defenses. His human instincts allowed him to react faster than the automated systems, predicting enemy moves and countering them before they could cause damage. Lyra realized she was proud not only of his skill but of his courage. Humans may have been young and inexperienced compared to Zytherians, but they were fearless, resourceful, and determined. Traits that no advanced technology could replace. The rogue ships retreated as their first attack failed, frustrated by the unexpected strategy. Zytherian forces, under Eric's guidance, had managed to protect the city without unnecessary loss. Exhausted but exhilarated, Lyra turned to him. "You are extraordinary, Eric. I admit I doubted you, but today, you saved us all." Eric smiled, though tired. "I only did what I could. Your people's technology made it easier. But courage, that comes from within. Humans have plenty of that." "Ami." Lyra felt a sense of wonder. Could it be that humans, so young and seemingly weak compared to advanced alien civilizations, were capable of incredible things? Could this human, her husband, truly stand beside her as an equal, a partner, and a protector? As the city lights reflected on the palace walls, Lyra realized that this marriage, once a source of shock and confusion, might be the key to a stronger, united future. Not just for her, but for her people, and for Earth. And in that moment, she began to hope not just for an alliance, but for a bond between 2 worlds that could change everything. The sky above Zytheria had turned a deep shade of violet as night approached, and the twin moons reflected their soft light across the palace towers. Yet, the calm of the evening was deceptive, far beyond the city's walls, in the dark reaches of space. The rogue faction's fleet had grown larger, more organized, and far more dangerous than the scouts had reported. Princess Lyra stood on the palace balcony, her hands gripping the smooth railing as she gazed at the stars. Her mind raced with thoughts of strategy and protection. The calmness of the earlier encounter had not prepared her for this. This was not a simple raid. This was a test, a real threat to her city, her people, and now, indirectly, her human husband. Eric joined her quietly, his armor slightly scuffed from the training exercises earlier in the day. He looked up at the sky, assessing the distance and formation of the rogue ships. "They're more organized than I thought," he said calmly. "They've learned from their failures. If we're not careful, they'll find a weakness." Lyra turned to him, her eyes serious. "Then we must be ready." This is no longer just a training exercise, Eric. This is real. Eric nodded. I know, and we will be ready. Together. The palace command room was alive with activity. Holographic screens floated above tables, showing the incoming ships and the defenses of Scytheria. Advisors shouted instructions, engineers adjusted shields, and security forces prepared for battle. Lyra and Eric stood at the center, overseeing the preparations. Lyra noticed the skepticism in some of her advisors' eyes. Even after the first skirmish, many could not fully accept the value of human intuition in battle. But Eric moved confidently among them, explaining strategies and coordinating movements with clarity and precision. He paused near a holographic map of the city and outlined a plan. The fleet will try to hit the outer gates first, he said. Their formation is aggressive, but predictable. We can create decoys to mislead them and use the city's energy shields in combination with trap zones. If we act quickly, we can minimize damage and protect civilians. One advisor frowned. Decoys? That is risky. If the ships detect them, they could bypass our defenses entirely. Eric met the alien's gaze without fear. Risk is always present in battle. But calculated risk can save lives. If we stay cautious yet proactive, we can control the outcome. Lyra watched him, impressed by his courage. Even in the face of danger, Eric remained calm and decisive. She realized that humans, though young and physically weaker than Zetherians, carried a boldness that advanced civilizations sometimes lacked. As the rogue fleet approached, red warning lights flashed across the city. Citizens hurried to shelters, while drones and defense turrets activated automatically. Eric moved to the central command station, coordinating forces with speed and efficiency. The first wave of enemy ships attacked the outer perimeter. Energy shields glowed brightly as the city absorbed the impact. The shields flickered under heavy fire, and alarms rang across the command room. Lyra's heart pounded. Eric, they are breaking through. What do we do? Eric quickly assessed the situation, scanning the incoming ships. Focus on their lead ships. If we take out their command vessels, the rest will lose coordination. Deploy the decoy drones now, and position the energy traps along the predicted path. Timing is everything. The advisors hesitated, but Lyra stepped forward. Do as he says. Trust him. Within moments, the plan was in motion. Drones mimicked vulnerable ships, drawing the rogue fleet into trap zones. Energy barriers pulsed with light, temporarily immobilizing the enemy vessels. Eric moved swiftly, issuing commands that blended human tactical thinking with Zetherian technology. The rogue ships, caught off guard, began to falter. One by one, their formation broke apart. The palace defense turrets struck with precision, while Eric coordinated counterattacks, ensuring the city remained protected. Lyra could hardly believe her eyes. This human, whom she had doubted only days ago, was orchestrating a victory with strategy and courage she had never seen before. She felt a surge of pride not just for him, but for the realization that humans could stand shoulder to shoulder with the most advanced civilizations. Suddenly, a larger enemy vessel broke through the defenses, aiming directly at the central palace. Lyra's stomach tightened. Eric, that ship is heading for the palace. If it hits, Eric's jaw set. I will stop it. Without hesitation, he activated a small personal flight device. Soaring above the battlefield, his human reflexes allowed him to move quickly through the chaos, dodging blasts and debris. Using a combination of skill and intuition, he targeted the enemy vessel's weak points, striking with precision. The ship shuddered under his attacks and finally exploded in a brilliant flash of light. The city's alarms fell silent as the remaining rogue ships retreated, recognizing that their attack had failed. Lyra rushed to Eric as he landed beside her. You saved the palace. You saved everyone, she exclaimed, her voice a mixture of relief and astonishment. Eric looked at her, breathing heavily but smiling. We saved the palace together. Your people's technology and my tactics, combined, they made this possible. Lyra felt a surge of admiration and gratitude. I underestimated humans. I doubted you. But you are extraordinary. Not just a warrior, but a leader. Someone who inspires courage. Eric's smile softened. Thank you, Princess. I only do what I must. Your people's safety is my responsibility now, as your husband and ally. For the first time, Lyra saw him not just as a human or a stranger, but as a partner, a person she could trust and rely on. She realized that this marriage, once a source of shock, had become a symbol of unity, strength, and hope. As the city recovered, Lyra and Eric walked through the streets together. Citizens emerged from shelters, cheering and expressing gratitude. Children waved at Eric, fascinated by his courage and skill. Even the skeptical advisors now looked at him with respect. Recognizing that humans, though young and inexperienced in many ways, had qualities that could rival even the most advanced aliens, Lyra felt a quiet pride. She had been wrong to doubt him. Humans were not just survivors, they were innovators, fearless, and full of determination. And this human, standing beside her now, had proven that courage, creativity, and quick thinking could change the outcome of even the most dangerous situations. Later, back in the palace, Lyra and Eric stood in the observation room, looking out at the night sky. The rogue faction had disappeared into the distance, but their threat remained a reminder that vigilance was necessary. You were amazing today, Lyra said softly. I never imagined a human could be so brave, so capable. Eric turned to her, his eyes steady. Princess, bravery is not about strength or technology. It is about facing fear, protecting those who cannot protect themselves, and making the right choice when it matters most. Humans may be young, but we have that courage, and I will always stand beside you. Lyra felt a deep sense of respect and admiration. She had once feared this marriage, worried that a human could not fit into her world. But now she realized that Eric's presence was more than fitting. He was a bridge between two worlds, a symbol of what could be achieved when different civilizations worked together. As they stood in silence, watching the stars, Lyra made a quiet promise to herself. She would support him, guide him, and trust him. And together, they would face any challenge that came to Zytheria, showing the universe that courage, determination, and unity could overcome any obstacle. That night, for the first time, Lyra slept with a sense of hope and excitement. Her human husband had proven himself not only in battle, but in spirit, and she knew that the true test of their partnership was only beginning. For in the days to come, threats from beyond Zytheria would grow stronger. Alliances would be tested, and Lyra and Eric would need every ounce of courage and ingenuity to protect their world. But one thing was certain. Together, they could face anything. Humanity, though young and underestimated, had proven its worth. And Princess Lyra had found not just a husband, but a warrior, a leader, and a partner who could stand beside her through every challenge. The sun rose over Zytheria, with its familiar hues of purple and gold, casting a soft glow over the city. The palace, still recovering from the previous night's attacks, buzzed with activity. Engineers repaired damaged drones, the streets were cleared of debris, and citizens returned to their routines. Yet, beneath the surface, tension lingered. The rogue faction's retreat did not guarantee safety. Their threat remained, and the possibility of a stronger attack weighed heavily on the council. Princess Lyra walked through the palace gardens, her mind occupied with plans and preparations. Beside her, Eric matched her pace, now more comfortable navigating the alien terrain. The garden, once a place of formality, had become a setting for shared learning. Lyra enjoyed teaching Eric about Zytherian culture, and he, in turn, shared stories of Earth, its people, and their unique ways of solving problems. You humans are fearless in ways we often cannot imagine, Lyra said, watching him carefully inspect a glowing flower. You risk yourselves without hesitation, even when the odds are against you. Eric smiled, crouching to examine the plant. We call it courage, Princess. Sometimes there's no time to think, only to act. but that's how we survive. And I've learned that courage is valuable in every world, not just Earth. Lyra considered his words. She had seen courage before, in her soldiers and warriors. But Eric's was different. It was personal, instinctive, and fearless, yet guided by care for others. It was a rare combination, one that could change the way Zytheria approached both diplomacy and defense. Their walk led them to a quiet terrace overlooking the city. Lyra leaned on the railing, gazing at the sprawling metropolis. There is so much I want to teach you, Eric. Not just about combat or strategy, but about our history, our philosophy, and the responsibilities of being a royal. One day, you will represent Zytheria to other civilizations. You must understand our ways fully. Eric nodded seriously. I want to learn everything, Princess. I want to be worthy of standing beside you. Lyra's heart softened. The human, once a source of shock and doubt, had become a student and a partner. She realized that their bond was no longer just a matter of duty. It was growing into something stronger, built on respect, trust, and shared experience. Their conversation was interrupted by a message from the council. A delegation from the Andralian Empire, a powerful neighboring civilization, had requested an urgent meeting. They sought to discuss a possible alliance and to offer support against the rogue faction. Lyra recognized the importance of diplomacy. This was a chance to secure Zytheria's safety and strengthen ties with a powerful empire. Eric, Lyra said, turning to him, you will join me in this meeting. Your perspective may prove useful. The Andralian diplomats are skilled negotiators, and humans are often underestimated. They may overlook your insights. Eric raised an eyebrow. You trust me in diplomacy now? Lyra smiled. After last night, I trust you with much more than I did before. And this is important. The safety of our people depends on every decision we make. The delegation arrived aboard a sleek starship, docking in the palace courtyard. Andralian ambassadors, tall and regal, stepped out with practiced poise. Their leader, Ambassador Solara, greeted Lyra with a slight bow. Princess Lyra, it is an honor to meet you. Your city's defense against the rogue fleet was impressive. Lyra inclined her head. Thank you, Ambassador Solara. We acted swiftly to protect our people. The rogue faction is still a threat, and I hope our discussions today can prevent further conflict. Eric stood quietly beside her, observing the ambassadors. He noticed subtle cues, the shifts in posture, the pauses in speech, the slight hesitations which suggested that the delegation was cautious, perhaps even uncertain of Zytheria's ability to defend itself against larger threats. During the council, the Andralian delegation proposed joint patrols of the nearby star systems, sharing technology and intelligence to prevent further raids. Lyra listened carefully, analyzing the offer. Eric leaned close and whispered, Princess, they are offering more than protection. They want influence over your trade routes. If accepted without caution, we could become dependent. Lyra nodded, impressed. I see it too. Thank you, Eric. Your insight is invaluable. When it was her turn to speak, Lyra addressed the delegation with confidence. We appreciate your offer of alliance and support. However, Zytheria values its independence. We are willing to cooperate, but not at the cost of our autonomy. Together, we can share intelligence and technology without one side controlling the other. The Andralian diplomats exchanged glances, clearly surprised by her firm stance. Eric gave her a subtle nod of approval. Her combination of wisdom and courage, supported by his insight, had created a balanced and strong position. After the meeting, Lyra and Eric walked back to the palace gardens. The air was cool, filled with the faint hum of energy flowing through the city. You handled that well, Eric said. Your words were strong, but fair. You showed strength without hostility. Lyra smiled. And you helped me see what I might have missed. Humans think differently, sometimes more clearly than we do. I am beginning to understand the value of that. They paused near a small fountain, watching the water shimmer in colors that seemed impossible. Lyra felt a growing sense of partnership with Eric. Their bond was no longer just arranged, it was mutual. He had proven himself in battle, in strategy, and now in diplomacy. Over the next few days, Lyra and Eric spent hours together, sharing lessons about their worlds. Lyra taught him Scytherian philosophy, history, and etiquette. Eric shared stories of Earth, how humans faced challenges with limited resources, how they built communities, and how courage and determination often outweighed technology. Through these lessons, Lyra began to see that Eric's human perspective brought new solutions to old problems. When they discussed trade, she noticed his ideas about efficiency and fairness. When they planned security, she observed his instinct for unpredictability and adaptation. Humans, she realized, were underestimated not because they were weak, but because they thought differently. One evening, while the stars reflected on the palace windows, Lyra spoke quietly. "Eric, I have been a princess my entire life, trained in strategy and diplomacy. But humans, you see the world differently. You notice things I might never have considered. That is a gift." Eric looked at her, a soft smile on his face. "And you, princess, have taught me to think beyond instinct, to plan and understand. Together, we are stronger than either of us alone." Lyra felt warmth in her chest. She had once been shocked by the idea of a human as her husband. Now, she felt grateful that fate had brought him into her life. Their partnership was more than marriage, it was a union of strengths, a bridge between worlds, and a promise of what they could achieve together. Just as they stood in the garden, a new alert arrived. Another rogue faction scout ship had been detected, closer than expected. Lyra and Eric exchanged a glance, knowing the real challenges were not yet over. "Are you ready?" Lyra asked, her voice steady. Eric nodded. "Always. And this time, we face it together." For the first time, Lyra felt true confidence. Not only did she have the support of her people and her technology, but she had a partner whose courage, creativity, and determination matched her own. Humanity, though young and underestimated, had proven itself again not just in combat, but in thought, leadership, and unity. As night deepened over Scytheria, Lyra realized that her bond with Eric was more than personal. It was symbolic of the future, a future where humans and Scytherians could learn from one another, face challenges together, and achieve what neither could do alone. In the quiet of the palace garden, they stood side by side, looking at the stars. The rogue faction might return, other challenges might arise. But one thing was certain. Lyra and Eric were no longer just princess and human warrior. They were partners, leaders, and a force that could shape the destiny of worlds. And for Lyra, that realization brought hope, excitement, and a deep sense of purpose. Together, she and her human husband would face the universe not as two different beings, but as one united force, ready for whatever came next. The morning sun bathed Scytheria in soft shades of lavender and gold, signaling a day that would change the planet forever. The city was alive with energy, not just from the usual bustling traffic of floating vehicles and citizens, but from preparations for a historic event, the final negotiation with the Andralian Empire and the formal recognition of the alliance that would secure Scytheria's future. Princess Lyra walked through the palace halls, her mind focused on the upcoming council. Beside her, Eric adjusted his ceremonial armor. Though it was ornate and unfamiliar, it fit him surprisingly well. The people of Scytheria had embraced him, seeing not just a human but a warrior, a leader, and a partner worthy of the princess. Lyra glanced at Eric, smiling softly. "It seems our people have accepted you as one of their own." Eric nodded, a humble smile on his face. "I am honored, princess. But it is not just acceptance that matters. It is trust. And that must be earned every day. Today, we must show that humanity and Scytheria together can face any challenge." Lyra's heart swelled with pride. Together, they had faced intruders, negotiated alliances, and learned from each other. Today, their unity would be tested in diplomacy, strategy, and leadership. The council hall was filled with representatives from both Zytheria and the Andralian Empire. The atmosphere was tense, as centuries of political caution and rivalry hovered in the room. Lyra and Eric entered together, their presence commanding attention. Humans were rare in such chambers, and most aliens had never seen one act with such calm confidence among leaders. Ambassador Solara of the Andralian Empire rose to greet them. Princess Lyra, your city's resilience has impressed us greatly. And this human, your husband, has shown courage and wisdom beyond expectation. Lyra inclined her head. Thank you, Ambassador. Courage alone is not enough. We seek unity and cooperation, not just strength. Today, we propose an alliance based on mutual respect, trust, and shared responsibility. Eric stepped forward, addressing the room. Representatives of Zytheria and Andralia, humans may be young compared to your civilizations, but we believe in creativity, adaptability, and courage. We have learned that even the smallest differences can create new solutions when combined. Together, we can ensure safety, prosperity, and peace for all our worlds. A murmur ran through the hall. The words were simple, yet the meaning was powerful. Humans, long considered young and weak by alien standards, were showing that courage, creativity, and determination could be just as valuable as advanced technology and centuries of experience. The Andralian counselors exchanged glances. One elder, who had been skeptical from the start, finally nodded. Perhaps we underestimated the humans. And this, princess. Lyra felt a sense of pride, not just for herself but for Eric. Together, they had proven that partnership could overcome skepticism and fear. The negotiations began. Plans for joint patrols, trade agreements, and shared research were discussed. Disagreements arose, as they always did in politics. But Lyra and Eric worked together to find solutions. Lyra applied her knowledge of Zytherian strategy and philosophy, while Eric contributed his human perspective, suggesting unconventional approaches that solved problems others could not see. Hours passed, but by evening, an agreement was reached. A treaty was signed, solidifying the alliance between Zytheria, Andralia, and Earth. The room erupted in applause, the energy of accomplishment filling every corner. Lyra and Eric exchanged a quiet glance, their hands brushing briefly. They had done it together. As the council dispersed, Lyra led Eric to the palace balcony. The twin moons hung in the sky, casting a soft glow over the city. The night was peaceful, a stark contrast to the battles and challenges of the past days. You were incredible today, Lyra said, her voice filled with admiration. Not just in battle, but here, in diplomacy. I am proud to call you my husband. Eric. Eric's blue eyes met hers, steady and sincere. And I am honored to stand beside you, princess. Together, we have proven that humanity can rise to meet any challenge, and together, we will continue to protect and guide your people. Lyra smiled, feeling a warmth that went beyond pride. She realized that her initial shock at this marriage had transformed into respect, trust, and a bond stronger than she had ever imagined. Eric was no longer just a human warrior. He was her partner, in every sense. The following days brought celebration and recognition. Citizens of Zytheria gathered to honor the heroes of the defense, applauding both the princess and the human who had helped save their world. Children approached Eric, wide-eyed, asking about his battles and training. He patiently answered, sharing stories of courage, determination, and teamwork. Lyra watched him interact with her people. His humility, kindness, and bravery were infectious. She realized that humans, though young and seemingly fragile, had qualities that could inspire entire civilizations. Their courage was not measured in technology or history, but in heart, action, and the will to protect others. One evening, as the celebrations quieted, Lyra and Eric walked through the palace gardens. The glowing plants cast shimmering reflections on their faces. Lyra felt a sense of peace she had never known before. Eric, she said softly, our worlds are different, and yet, together, We have shown that differences can become strengths. You have taught me that courage is not just in warriors or soldiers, but in every person willing to act for what is right. Eric smiled. And you have taught me that knowledge, wisdom, and patience are as powerful as any weapon. Together, we make a strong team. Humanity may be young, but we are capable, and with your guidance, we can achieve even more. Lyra took his hand, feeling the strength in his grip. Then let us continue. Not just as rulers or warriors, but as partners. Together, we will face whatever challenges the universe sends our way. Their conversation was interrupted by a message from the outer systems. Scouts had detected a distant fleet, another potential threat. Lyra and Eric shared a glance, neither alarmed, for they knew they were stronger together. Shall we prepare? Lyra asked, her voice calm and determined. Eric nodded. Always. But this time, we are ready not just with weapons, but with unity, strategy, and trust. We face it together. As the night deepened, the city slept peacefully, unaware that their leaders were ready to defend it once more. Lyra and Eric stood on the balcony, looking at the stars, feeling the bond between them grow stronger with each challenge. For Lyra, the journey had been extraordinary. She had once doubted the human warrior she was to marry. She had feared that their differences would be too great, that his young species could not match the wisdom and technology of her world. But she had been wrong. Eric had proven that courage, creativity, and determination could rival any advantage, and that the heart of a human could inspire hope, unity, and respect across worlds. For Eric, the journey had been equally transformative. He had arrived on Zetheria as an outsider, a stranger in a world far beyond anything he had imagined. Yet, through courage, learning, and respect, he had earned a place not only beside the princess but within the hearts of her people. He had proven that humanity, though underestimated, could rise to meet any challenge and change the course of history. In the quiet of the palace garden, Lyra turned to him and said, "Arik, I once thought our marriage was surprising, even shocking. But now, I see that it was the universe's way of showing us that together, we can achieve greatness. Not just for ourselves, but for all our people." Eric's smile was gentle, yet filled with determination. "Then let us continue, Princess. Together, we will protect our worlds, inspire our people, and show the universe that courage, unity, and heart can overcome anything." And so, under the twin moons of Zetheria, the princess and her human warrior husband stood together. Their journey had tested them, challenged them, and strengthened them. They had faced enemies, navigated diplomacy, and learned from each other. And in doing so, they had proven a simple truth. Humanity, though young and underestimated, could stand as an equal among the stars. Lyra and Eric knew the universe would continue to challenge them, that new threats and mysteries would arise. But they also knew that together, nothing was impossible. Their partnership was more than marriage. It was a symbol of unity, courage, and hope for generations to come. The story of Princess Lyra and her human warrior husband would be remembered across Zetheria and beyond. A tale of respect, bravery, and the extraordinary power of two worlds standing together. And in that unity, both princess and warrior found their true strength, not just in themselves, but in each other.